The corruption in New York City is out of control. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about 70 NYC, New York City Housing Authority employees being arrested by the federales as a result of their involvement in a 10-year, $2 million pay-for-play scheme. Basically, what would happen is a contractor will reach out to an employee or vice versa and say, hey, I want to get a contract to work on this building, that building, whatever it is, but I don't want to bid. I want a no bid contract. All they have to do is just pay the employee $1,000, $2,000, whatever the price is, and boom, they got a contract. And this is 100% illegal. And I think maybe some of the contractors were not really qualified to do the work that they were doing, because there are some squalid conditions in New York City's housing authority. These projects in low income spots, they are terrible. Now, I'm going to show you a few examples of why this was not a good idea beyond the obvious illegality of it. Then we're going to get into the details with the news clip. But first things first, look at this right here. Legionnaire's disease kills New York City housing resident, puts Brooklyn public housing complex on alert. The city's health department urged vulnerable tenants in Brownsville's Langston Hughes houses not to shower as it studies a possible cluster of bacterial illness. This is February 5th, 2024. This is very recently. This is right around the time where all this stuff is coming out, okay? That's one example of maybe you got some things going on rather than the residents of New York City Housing Authority, rather than them being the focus of, good treatment and good living conditions. You got this kind of stuff going on. Residents catching diseases and dying in their houses. Here's another one. Harlem grandma struggles to get hot water fixed in NYC apartment. A Harlem great grandmother said she hadn't taken a shower in 5 months, a hot shower in 5 months, because there was no hot water in the bathroom. That's one. And then here's another one. NYC staffer once caught naked on work video call, allowed to retire with pension weeks before historic bribery indictment. So you got to ask yourself, was this person? Yeah, matter of fact, this person was one of the 70 charged. So I'm going to read some of this right here. It says Alex Tazano, 57, was one of 70 current and former New York City Housing Authority employees charged over an alleged $2 million 10-year racket Tuesday, marking the largest number of federal bribery raps brought in a single day in Justice Department history. Okay. So this guy, who for some reason took his clothes off on a live call and got caught doing it, was allowed to retire with benefits, and he was stealing. Okay. That's what I'm reading right here. And if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. Again, the corruption in New York City is out of this world. Now let's get into the actual news clip to get deeper into the story. If you want to see this clip in full without my commentary, link as always will be in the description. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
We start with what the feds say is the biggest single-day bribery takedown in the history of the Justice Department. I'm Natalie Pasquarella.
And I'm David Ushery. 70 people were charged today, including many NYCHA building supers. We have live team coverage, starting with our chief investigative reporter, Jonathan Deast, who broke the story this morning. He's in the newsroom. Jonathan?
David, Natalie, in this one investigation, prosecutors say they found corruption in 1/3 of all New York City public housing projects.
1/3 of the projects, you got corruption. And you know what? Can I just pause for a minute? This is the problem with big government. As you guys may or may not know, housing projects, these are government controlled entities, local government, not the federal necessarily. I mean, you might have some that HUD are able to look over, but really this is a local government entity. Okay, it's funded by the taxpayers. There's so much graft, so much corruption, so much stealing, so much just inadequacy, so many things going on. This is a big part of the reason why government sucks. Housing, things like this should be left up to the private market, the private sector, not the public sector. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any kind of oversight from the public, but let it be primarily a private thing without the government getting this greasy, dirty, corrupt paws into it. But I'm getting triggered, so I digress.
Today, dozens and dozens of current and former workers were led away in handcuffs. There were so many public housing workers allegedly taking bribes that the feds had a bus on standby today to drive them over to court.
That's crazy. Remember, 70 people.
The overflow of suspects were soon seen being led away into U.S. Marshal vans. All the arrests began early this morning. Here, Homeland Security Investigations agents, along with City Department of Investigation detectives, seen taking away some workers from the Baisley Park houses in Queens. New York City Housing Authority properties, or NYCHA properties, raided this morning to arrest supers and assistant supers from the Latimer and Woodside houses in Queens to the Taft and MLK houses in Harlem.
Superintendents accepting and extorting bribes from contractors had become business as usual, occurring in almost 100 NYCHA buildings across all 5 boroughs.
Prosecutors say bribe schemes like these have been ongoing for a decade, involving jobs like window replacements or plumbing, $10,000 or less, no-bid contracts, at the discretion of the super to get the work done. But too often, to get the work, investigators say that contractors had to give the NYCHA workers like these a big kickback.
Yeah, greasing their palms. Okay, give me X amount of money, and then you get the contract. Rather than bidding like a normal process, you may have, let's say, 10 contractors, 15 contractors. They submit their bid. They're reviewed. What's your experience? What's your expertise? Rather than that, just pay your money, and you got it.
Meaning more money to line pockets and less money to improve living conditions.
These victims may have been cheated out of better services and programs meant to improve their lives.
NYCHA houses about 300,000 New Yorkers, and the agency gets about $1.5 billion in federal aid. This latest public housing corruption investigation began about a year ago. The feds and DOI say they documented $2 million in bribes on $13 million in contracts.
If the contractors didn't pay up, the defendants wouldn't give them the work. That's classic pay to play.
Yeah.
And this culture of corruption at NYCHA ends today.
Tough talk from the U.S. attorney, who said in addition to the 70 charged today, more arrests could soon be coming. Some contractors are cooperating with the feds against building supers. Most defendants now charged with federal solicitation of a bribe, a count that carries a max of 10 years in prison. Several others also face federal extortion counts that carry up to 20 years if convicted.
Now, I got a question for you guys. Do you think this is overkill? Do you think that they're going too far? Having the bus with 70 people, the perp walk, everything being on camera, the big charges, is it a little bit too much? Are there bigger fish to fry with the migrants and everything else? I think that there are other issues happening in New York City, but this is a pretty big thing that I think is not just plaguing New York City, but it's a thing that is all over the place in the federal government and local governments all over the country, unfortunately.
Natalie?
Chief investigative reporter Jonathan Dienst with this story. John, a lot of folks talking about this. News 4's Andrew Siff continuing our team coverage now live in Lower Manhattan with the reaction from the NYCHA residents, Andrew.
Right, Natalie, and some of the defendants that Jonathan just talked about are making their initial appearances in federal court behind me. But as you indicated, we spoke with residents. Many of them are just in disbelief, and they're wondering if this alleged bribe scheme impacted the pace of getting things fixed.
Of course, because you're not necessarily getting the best contractor. Now, sometimes you get an adequate contractor that can do the job pretty well, because at a certain point, you got to know what you're doing a little bit to be a contractor. But the whole process, the whole purpose of bidding is to get the best. And if you just bypassing that whole process, there's no guarantee you getting the best. You might just get adequate at best, or maybe even the absolute worst. And then, of course, things are going to kind of be slow walked, because what's the rush? I paid the money. I got the contract. I'm not really motivated to get things done in a timely fashion because I got the contract and they're not going to get me off of it. So whatever.
Some tenants wonder if repairs to their pipes and other apartment problems got delayed because of the alleged bribe scheme.
I mean, that's crazy. You know, people put in work orders and wonder why they take so long to come up with these work orders, and they taking money.
Others say they aren't surprised to hear about the criminal charges. You don't seem shocked.
No, I don't. It's been going on for a long time. You know, what can we do as New Yorkers?
It's a very disappointing day at NYCHA.
Lisa Bova Hyatt is CEO of the Housing Authority, the nation's largest. She had stern words for those accused.
They've betrayed the public trust. We will not tolerate any type of malfeasance.
But
if you're the head honcho, did you not know it was going on for 10 years? You had no inclination it was going on. If the residents know, why don't you know? That'd be my question. But hey, I digress.
Also tried to keep the arrests in perspective. 55 current employees charged out of a workforce of 12,000.
Although 55 is a huge number, in the context of all the work that we do across the 5 boroughs, it puts it in perspective.
City investigators have made 14 recommendations of what NYCHA can do better, including cost controls and better oversight.
Our recommendations include transferring responsibility for micro purchases from development level staff to a centralized procurement unit.
A bunch of gobbledygook. Gobbledygook. I'll link to the video in the box. But the problem here is not going to be the solution. The problem is the government. It's just as simple. The problem is the government. You want to have all these, you want to have new forms of bureaucracy to fix the issue of the bureaucracy that was bypassed by pay for play, which resulted in possibly lesser contractors being able to get work. That's just what's going on. But as I close, I want to say this. New York City and a lot of other places in the country are very corrupt, and these guys should go to the penitentiary, big rocks, little rocks. But I think, again, the ultimate solution would be to reduce the scope and the power of the government, because as long as we got big government going on, these kind of things are going to persist. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you live in New York City? Have you ever lived in a NYCHA building? Are you surprised with what's going on here? Are you surprised at all? Are you taken aback? Or did you see it coming, business as usual? And what other city in this nation do you think the same thing is going on? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I am not surprised at all. This is no shocker to me because it's government. It's New York City. It's corruption. We see what's happening with the migrants. We see what's happening with some of the drugs and the homelessness going on all over the country and certain nations. We see what's happening with these places, bad policies. This, in my example, in my opinion, is another example of government just not doing what it should be doing. It's just that simple. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.